Hey, everybody, this is Donald Schultz, and you are listening to the Plaid Hat Podcast, or watching it if you're one of those people who use YouTube, that new thing that Google has made. We are here today to talk about Wandering Galaxy, the game that is currently available on Kickstarter, if you're listening to it when it came out. And we're talking about the audio of the game. With me today is, of course, the designer of the game, J. Rod Hawthorne. Hey, Jerry, how's it going? Suddenly, I can't hear Jerry. Jerry has become mute in the moment when we started recording.
This is the audio episode, Jerry.
Jerry, are you there? Hey, it's Jerry. His mic muted when I called him J-Rod. It was like, no, do not respond to that.
No J-Rod stuff here.
We also have Mr. Bistro, the fiction man. Hi, Bistro. How are you?
Very happy to be here.
Sweet. And then joining us is our special guest, Elizabeth Maxwell, good friend of mine, reporting live from Austin, Texas. Elizabeth is the narrator and player voice in Wandering Galaxy's app. The audio that you hear in the game is mostly coming from her mouth, and she's here with us today. How's it going, Elizabeth?
There's nowhere else I'd rather be, Donald.
So Elizabeth, you might know Elizabeth from her work in a little game called Familiar Tales, where she played Blaze the Fox, which was also by Jerry Hawthorne. Elizabeth, have you been in anything else that people might have heard of?
Oh, if you happen to be a nerd like me and, play video games or watch anime.
Yeah.
Was in a little game called Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody heard of it, though. I don't think it did very well, to be honest.
You were lady,
I won't pass that curse on to you guys.
You were Lady Urbosa and little lady.
Little Lady Riju.
Riju, yes.
Not so little in Tears of the Kingdom. My baby girl grows up.
That's right. Yeah, Elizabeth is here. You'll know Elizabeth from all sorts of anime and video games, but we are here to talk about board games. Elizabeth, do you like board games?
I literally spent 5 hours at a friend's house at a board game night last night.
5 hours? So you played one game.
No, we got through two.
Nice.
2 and dinner. We played one of the harder weird games I played recently. It was called Clues and Hues.
Oh, yeah. I like that game.
Yeah.
That's a really weird game. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's for those in the audience that don't know what I'm talking about. It's basically a board of like all of these little squares of colors. And you have to get people to try and guess the exact square that you want with like a one-word guess. And I'm sitting there looking at the board like, all of those beiges look the same shade to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll be like, lemonade. And then everybody is like, which yellow of these like 50 yellows on this board is lemonade?
It teaches you that like everyone has a different vocabulary for describing color. No one has the same idea. It's really
But then it feels like magic when someone laser blasts it in exactly the right spot. Everybody's like, that is a lemon. You're right.
I don't want to be like, super gender normie, but I will say that the women were like this. Like, we got each other's guesses. And the guys were like, fuchsia, that sounds green.
I mean, I would say you're wrong, except for I only recently learned, like, this year that chartreuse is like a bright green color, and I had thought it was like a magenta color for all that time. So
is this a dude thing? Because there was literally another guy that said the exact same thing last night.
He probably just knew me, and I had told him wrong.
By the way, I will say that I actually pimped out the game to my friends because the second game we played was cooperative. It was Castle Panic. And I love a good cooperative game. And so I told them, I was like, hey, we got to play Wandering Galaxy when it comes out.
Castle Panic, by the way, a Austin game. Fireside.
Is it really?
Yeah, that was designed and made in Austin. Fireside Games is an Austin local represent. They're nice folks. I've talked to them a bit. And if you ever need to play a game with a very small kid, my first Castle Panic, very good game. Almost impossible to beat. Not difficulty wise. It's very easy to beat. It's a cooperative game for small children. But I really cannot recommend that one enough if you want a good game that's fun for you as an adult to play with a young kid. It uses like shape recognition as like its core mechanic, basically. And it's great. My first Castle Panic, big plug for that one. We don't make games for small children, so they can have that. Yeah, and now we're talking about Wandering Galaxy. Jerry, how much money has Wandering Galaxy made on Kickstarter? Do you know?
The last I checked, it was like 133,000 or something like that.
133,000. Now, last episode, Colby said that we were past the secret actual internal number we were actually trying to hit. As we all know, your Kickstarter goal is this is enough for us to actually make the game and send it to people and then go bankrupt. And then the internal goal to where, hey, this might actually be a profitable business venture we have hit, which is
tomorrow
nice.
We eat.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know this.
Oh, really? That's yeah. A little inside baseball. A lot of big board game companies will cancel their Kickstarters even after they've hit their goal. They'll pull it. They'll be like, we needed to make like 100,000 the first day in order to hit our numbers, and we didn't. So we're gonna
398% funded. That's just not good enough.
Yeah. There's been a couple notable ones where the whole audience goes, "What is going on? Why are you suddenly canceling it?" And like,
you made $1 million.
It's like you made $300,000 in 24 hours, and they're like, that's not what we wanted.
Dang.
Yeah, weird stuff. We, of course, are in the midst of doing the audio for Wandering Galaxy. I forgot the name of the game. With Elizabeth, who is the narrator and the voice whenever the player speaks. And this is not your first board game that you've done audio for, Elizabeth. Because as you did Jerry's previous game, Familiar Tales. Is this experience different in any kind of way that you can remember?
I mean, I'd say that anytime you voice something like a narrator as opposed to, I mean, I know I'm voicing the play. I'll get there. Right. But when you voice a narrator as opposed to Blaze, who was like a playable character in Familiar Tales, it's kind of that like video game challenge of you're like, okay, I've got to impart a lot of data, but I've got to keep it interesting, keep it snappy, and like also make it very clear, like these are the nuggets you need to hold on to. This is what you need to go do. So it's always like a little bit of a different challenge. And then for the player character, it's always interesting. The narrator is obviously like present throughout the entire game. So we establish that voice. And then it's like, okay, we got to come up with a second voice that is both entirely distinct from the narrator. So there's an obvious auditory difference, but also we wanted to keep it pretty gender neutral. So that was kind of an interesting, like, thing to find and explore.
Yeah, and it was funny. We changed it. This is a little inside baseball. We changed it because I originally had thought, like, Elizabeth, I want you to do the voice you would do if you were like repeating a story where like a guy said a dumb thing to you, like a dumb guy kind of voice. And so we did most of what we've recorded with Elizabeth doing this like, yeah, man, like voice or whatever. And then Elizabeth kind of gently nudged me in a different direction, and we landed in a much better spot, I think. I don't think that one was going to hold for 80 hours of gameplay. I think eventually you'd be like, boy, I hate every time I talk in this game.
I was going to say, listening back to some of it, I was like, I don't know if I like the player character like this.
And it's funny because in like Forgotten Waters and Freelancers, which was narrated by Christopher Sabat, who could not join us today, but he does send his love. His player voice, it almost feels like he's making fun of you every time he does your voice. Like you get a little bit of like, oh, hey, what's that over there? Or whatever. But yours felt meaner it felt less inadvertent and it felt meaner. Like it was more aggressive. It was just like, and then you say, duh, or whatever. So
what can I say? We can't all be Christopher Sabat.
Well, yeah. Christopher
being gender neutral is so hard to do because like Chris tried to use a voice that like anyone could identify with, and you'd sort of know what he was going for, even if it's this clearly masculine voice reading it to you. But we still would see people like, I was playing with a group, we're all female, and we got really confused. Like, so I guess all the characters are male, so we stopped playing. We threw away our characters, made male characters, but that felt weird. It's like, oh no, that's not what we were going for at all.
You might be in a little too deep if you're remaking your character because of the voice of the house.
Yeah, but it's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is. And Chris's gender neutral voice is still deeper than my normal speaking voice you hear now.
It's deeper than most, voices in general.
Bistro, you've written a few of these now. What is different about the writing the dialogue for this game versus some of the previous games?
The thing that's awesome about this game is we've learned. So normally when we've written the dialogue in the past, when we've done any of the fiction writing, we write like it's a novel, right? So the formatting is just the same as a novel, a short story. And there's this weird thing that happens because you've got multiple people who could be reading in the same sentence. And so the editing is cutting between actors. That's what I thought, she said. So you got the character, you got the narrator. And sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it just sort of bugged me. And since there's so much theater of the mind already happening, this time we were like, let's do it like a regular script where everyone just has lines and we don't have to have establishing shots necessarily. We do the general setting, but then we just let the characters talk. We cut out all the he said, or she said, her face looking puzzled. We took all that out. And I think it flows so much better. It's snappier. And I think when it's edited together, I think it's going to sound so much better. I think we actually found the format that this kind of game should have been using all along. In a way.
Yeah, I'm liking the flow of this one. It also edits together faster, and it records a lot easier, too. Elizabeth, I don't know if you recall, but when we were doing Familiar Tales, we weren't able to filter by just your character who was speaking. I would just have to go through by eyeball and highlight anytime your character would speak. Obviously, like you could, hit, like find and replace to find the character's name, and that helps a lot. But you would just be like, oh, you're all the orange lines. That's when Blaze talks. And inevitably, there's human error where it's like, oh, we missed one. We've got to go back and pick that up or whatever. Whereas now that
is that process, where you did an impersonation of my voice, Donald?
I did do you in one spot, actually. I think I can't remember.
Did you really? Is it still there?
I bet we picked it up. I don't remember. Do you know, Elizabeth? Did I?
We 100% picked it up. For some reason, I don't remember what the reason was. You did as a placeholder, like an impersonation of me doing plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have even just been a like, or something like that. Like it might have been because I will admit I do sometimes do sighs and stuff for actor because it'll like in the edit, sometimes it'll bug me when it's like he sighed and said, and then I don't have the sigh or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes it's like, I really kind of want to hear that sigh right there, but I don't want to bother that person. So I'll just go like, and then like pitch it up or pitch it down or do whatever. And then usually you can't tell. But yeah,
I also wanted to say I have been enjoying the wise assery of the writing for this game quite a bit.
We've worked very hard at our wise assery. So.
The narrator has a rather dry sense of humor, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, you're really doing the heavy lifting on this because the narrator and being the narrator and the player voice, like you're in pretty much every entry. And yeah, setting the tone as the narrator, that's super important. That's easily more important than pretty much all of the other characters. That narrator sets everything. So.
Well, and I know like we'll read through a section and I'll like wait and be like, did Donald chuckle? And it's like if he didn't, I'm like, okay, maybe we need to go again.
In real life, and Nikki will attest to this, I'm actually a very hard laugh, but I will give a lot of courtesy chuckles just to acknowledge like that was. So I don't want you thinking like, oh, I got a real chuckle out of him.
Don't think you succeeded.
I don't want you thinking
too good about yourself.
No, but don't feel bad either. It's
I would have preferred continuing to live in my blissful ignorance, Donald.
I had a friend whose name I will omit, who had an identity crisis when he learned his sister pretends to laugh at men's jokes just by instinct. And he was like, I have built my entire life around being a funny person. My sister, it turns out, was not actually laughing at most of my jokes. Like, I'm actually not as funny as I thought.
It's very sad. That's
yeah. Elizabeth, do you pretend to laugh at men's jokes?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I feel like you've brickwalled me sometimes in the past, which is good. Keeps you on your toes.
I can be a bit polarizing in that I don't do that.
Sure.
And so, but it's like I feel like, hey, if you get a real laugh out of me, you should feel good about yourself.
Yeah,
this is very real.
You also are willing to disagree with people, which is, I think, a rare thing, not to be, but amongst actors especially, you don't often meet a lot of actors when you're casting and directing things. So go like, I think you're wrong. Hold on, you're not supposed to say that.
I'm a little more diplomatic than that. But yeah, I literally am the sort of person where if you're like, hey, does this shirt look good on me? I'm kind of like, well,
yeah.
Do you want the real answer? But, I feel like it's in service of the greater good.
Yeah. You're helping society. Yeah. Monica Rial once said that she thinks, as a generalization, female actors are better at pretending to laugh and male actors are better at pretending to punch things. As like, she's like, fight efforts is not a thing that a lot of young girls pretend to do growing up, and pretending to laugh at things is not a thing that a lot of young boys do.
Being emotionally generous isn't a thing that
funny.
Think about that a lot. So Familiar Tales, you were Blaze, who was my favorite voice in that game. And I knew, Jerry can attest to this, I knew I wanted you to be the narrator of this game from the beginning of us talking about it. I feel like I called you 2 years ago and was like, would you be okay doing this? And it's been a long journey to get here, as all of our games are. We start on them long before you hear about them. Jerry, the process of doing this And I guess this is a Bistro question too, since both of you took part in this. Does having a different actor as the narrator change the writing at all, or does it sort of by necessity have to be sort of from the same voice as the other games?
I'll leave that one to Bistro.
That's a hard question.
So we did Forgotten
I write
Waters.
differently than Bistro. I write for Bistro, and then Bistro writes for.
I write to make Bistro laugh.
Jerry and I have been
write for
doing this.
Bistro, and then
we've been doing this for a decade now, so we know how to work with each other pretty well. So Sabbath did the narration in Forgotten Waters, and that was my introduction to him. So in Freelancers, also we did a little DLC, extra scenario for Forgotten Waters. So I started. He was just sort of fun to mess with. So I'd start to write stuff that I knew would be difficult to say. I've got some lines that are deliberately written just to make him have a hard time saying them.
Yeah, he hated those.
And then Forgotten Waters, we made, since you said he had like a background like in singing, right? He's got that like a beautiful voice. So I made him sing a song about farts. And the Forgotten Waters thing is such a terrible, embarrassing thing. So we went all the way in Freelancers. There's a bard character. So we wrote 3 different songs that with no tune. Just here's he just had to
improvise a tune. Yeah, I was like, here, I don't know, make these into
songs. One was a recipe for
you guys are mean.
Yeah.
One was a Flintstones Fruity Pebbles style rap about what was it about? Something about like hating your mom's boyfriend or something.
I don't
know. It was that was a lot of fun. So
wait, then this was for Freelancers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in some ways, so there's those little things too. But yeah, like in Freelancers, we knew it would be Chris, and so that influenced the writing. And then I think also once we heard Elizabeth's work for some of the early Wandering Galaxy stuff, then I started imagining that voice for the rest of it. So.
That's true, because we are not done recording and editing Wandering Galaxy. We're still going through that process, which, is why we do need your support on Kickstarter, because it's quite a process. But that, I guess, you have had sort of a preview of what Elizabeth's narrator is like, and then can kind of take that into account going forward.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Everybody's voice, too. So as you hear all your main characters, you start to you learn, because you've written the words already. So you had your original intent, and then that other person, that other human comes in, they reinterpret it. So sometimes the vibe will be different. They're just reading it in a way you didn't expect, which is actually kind of fun.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to see that. And so then you start to guess where they're going to go with it as you write. You're never quite right, but it definitely influences you for sure.
Yeah, to me that's like the joy of directing and stuff, is you hear another person interpret, like you're like an in-between person, like you have your interpretation and then a third person interprets it through your interpretation, and it sort of feels, at least from my perspective, it feels kind of like, oh, we made something, like something magical was created that was just not like. And I think a good actor finds reads that weren't what you just like the most obvious thing that you like thought. Now in a board game, I'm often doing these actors a disservice and steering them back towards the most obvious possible read, because I'm trying to stay cognizant of the fact that a lot of people play these games half paying attention, like eating chips and making jokes to each other and stuff. True. So sometimes you kind of have to hit them over the head with a very obvious, like, we got to emphasize this word, because I don't have faith if somebody plays this with 6 people that they're going to all follow it. But that's like my favorite part of it, is hearing the actors kind of put a new spin on it, and then it's made its way telephone style from like Jerry to Bistro to me to the actor, and now it's like, oh, this is like a character now.
Yeah, everyone's interpreting.
Since I'm at the very, very beginning conceptual stuff, for me it's like hugely profound to hear the final stuff, after it's gone through all these channels.
Yeah, Jerry's feedback is always elated. He's just like,
yeah, he's easily like the most generous collaborator you could work with. because there's very little pushback. He likes seeing what other people do. But yeah, it's like the telephone game for sure.
Yeah.
How it comes out in the end.
I'm very excited to hear what it sounds like in the end, because Donald, as the director, very generously does the voices so that
true.
like, you know, as the player character, I have something to like work off of and play against. So I've basically heard Donald's impersonation of every other actor in the game, but I haven't actually heard the other actors. So I'm very curious to see like how close
this is true.
His impersonation was to the
I had
actual.
the benefit of sitting in on some of this, and that's true. Donald does play opposite of you. It's pretty cool process. I wish everybody could get sort of an inside glimpse of what it's like.
We should do our next game. We should record all of that and do a weird, like after you beat the game, you unlock like bad beta mode or something where you just hear like raw audio. It's funny that you say that. When we were doing Familiar Tales, you know, most of the actors I work with are people who I know from, you know, past lives and previous jobs when I was doing this stuff in video games and movies and cartoons and stuff. But I was working with Justin McElroy in Familiar Tales, and I had never worked with him before. And about halfway through his second session, he was like, "Hey, Donald, can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Are you like auditioning for a part or something? Why do you keep like reading all these and like doing the lines or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, I just thought it might help or whatever." And he was like, "No, you don't have to do that." And so I stopped. And then a couple cues in, he was like, "Hey, man, I think I lied. I think I liked it better when you were doing that. You seem to have a handle on this better than me, just in a vacuum. Could you bring back the voices?" Which is nice. It also honestly just helps me keep track of like pronunciations of funny words and stuff. Like if I'm pronouncing something wrong, but at least everybody else is pronouncing it incorrectly the way I pronounce it incorrectly, that's better than like one character just not knowing like a word, you know. Consistency.
That has also been one of my favorite things as the narrator. I get to say almost every weird word in this game.
A lot of sci-fi mumbo jumbo.
And yeah, I love like weird, funny sci-fi vocabulary that we get to make up.
90% of it is just like made up stuff.
Yeah. You did unfortunately make a huge mistake in telling Bistro that you like reading the convoluted sci-fi gibberish.
At one point, because we don't know, at one point, I actually tried to start looking up scientific stuff. Like, well, I need to know how these chemicals interact and stuff. At some point, I realized what a huge mistake that was.
Yeah.
Now there's like chemicals like blorpamine and stuff. So
yeah.
Enjoy figuring that out.
Well, it also
I know exactly what blorpamine does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's valuable stuff. You just got to be careful with it.
I do feel like there is a certain kind of like gibberish sci-fi word that if done correctly signals to the person hearing like you also are not supposed to know what this is. Do you know what I mean? Like, blorpa mean you go like, cool, that's nonsense. But if it sounds too real, it's like, am I supposed to know what that is?
Exactly. You're getting the permission to just like roll with it. Yeah. This isn't science, it's fantasy.
This is not a good venue for this question, but I thought of a really good awkward question to ask. So I do want to ask it. Bistro, how is it different writing for Jerry than for me? How am I different than Jerry for writing?
Yeah. So
because you said you and Jerry are like the best team. So what does that make me and you?
I didn't say we're the best team. I said we've been doing this for 10 years. And yeah, no, Jerry, we've been working for 10 years. So Jerry's writing has changed dramatically over 10 years, right? So like,
less slurs, right?
That's right. It's fewer epithets. Like the first time that we worked together was Mice and Mystics, right? So his writing, he's really focused on the scenario and getting the plot, right? So I was going in more working on like character arcs and stuff like that and patching holes here and there. But then as he's written more and more games, he's filled in more of that. And like it's it's great. I can just go in and add the parts that I want to add, and just sort of tweak the wording a bit. But it's super complete. His thoughts are really complete. With you and I, Donald, the easiest thing about freelancers was that our senses of humor were kind of lined up, and so you already have lots of good jokes. Where like that's the hardest part. Is like trying to be funny. Like the plot stuff is easy to get done right away. It's the jokes. We're like, how do I make this kind of funny? That can take a while. So you and I worked well, and we're different enough that, every time I get burnt out, I'd ask you for a joke and you could come up with something. That was great. So,
and Elizabeth, I don't think you were in Freelancers.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. How's that make you
No,
feel?
I came on, I think my first... Wait, what'd you say?
I said, how's that make you feel?
Like I'm missing out.
Yeah. But you were. I just remember.
We worked on Battleborn together.
That's
so
true.
I feel like that makes up for it.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So you, I just remembered we're also in Wandering Galaxy.
Yeah.
As like it was like Dirty Sally or Nasty Nancy
you mean,
or what
Forgotten
was it?
Waters.
Forgotten Waters. Sorry.
I thought
Was she
Wandering
Fran?
Galaxy, believe it or not.
Was she Fran?
It was in the
I was
DLC.
forgotten.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll be Fran then.
Fran, yeah.
It was Fran. It was Dirty Fran.
Filthy Fran.
Filthy Fran.
I called her Dirty Fran because I was imagining her as just being filthy, right? Like they're pirates, so everyone's disgusting. That was, but then we ended up making Dirty Fran. You could end up sleeping with her in this way that's really awkward, and we're like, well, let's not say dirty because we're not like trying to like kink shame or slut shame or something dumb like that. So we changed it. So I think it was more clear. Yeah, I don't remember what her name ended up being.
Yeah.
Stinky Fran.
Filthy Fran, I believe.
It's one of the best. There's so many good reoccurring jokes with her in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I've started playing a fun game. It's very fun. Everybody loves it. It's sweeping the nation, which is where you try to guess what the Kickstarter will end at, what the final number will be. And the person who is correct will win probably nothing. So I don't know. Does anybody want to put forward a guess?
T-shirt.
Do you want to hear a what? A freelancer's T-shirt?
Yeah, heavy metal freelancers T-shirt. There you go.
Yeah, I did make my own freelancers T-shirt for Gen Con. Oh, we'll be at Gen Con, by the way. If you're going to Gen Con, come by our booth. We're going to be running a demo of this game. Even if you just want to linger like a weirdo, sort of on the edges of a game, we welcome that. And you can hear the audio that we're talking about. You can hear Elizabeth in action at Gen Con. You will not be able to buy the game. We'll still be on Kickstarter at that time. But we really appreciate the support. And hopefully, if you're on the fence, seeing the game in action will unfence your ass and get you on our side. So I've been playing this game. Do you think the Kickstarter will end at? I believe my guess was 200,000. Then Colby's, I believe, was 170. And then
so pessimistic.
And then Jerry's was 170 and $1.
Yeah.
So he just prices righted Colby straight out. So that is kind of where we are right now. I don't know if y'all want to closest without going over kind of make a guess.
Where are we? Like where are we actually right now?
133.
130 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
When does the Kickstarter end?
August 8th.
Yeah, so there's 15 days to go.
Okay. And
it is currently at 134,399 at the time of this recording.
So we're at that middle camp. We're in the middle campaign doldrums where it's calmed down a little bit. And then
it usually scoops up a little bit right at the end when people are like, oh, I only have 24 hours to make a decision. But our Kickstarter doesn't have any fear of missing out, like gizmos and googads to sort of try to force you to back it.
I think we're going to get a Gen Con bump. I don't know how big that bump will be, but I definitely think when we start demoing it for people and we start encouraging them, like, hey, glad you enjoyed it. Please join us at Kickstarter. I think we're going to get a nice little bump. But I'll let Elizabeth guess.
So, Bistro, would you like to put forward a number?
I was going to guess 200K. So I'm going to Price is Right you, and I'm going to say 201K.
All right. That's fine. If anybody if we hit exactly 200 and somebody does anything after that, I will hire someone to find them. I take this very seriously.
This is your fault for inventing this game.
Yeah.
I'm guessing in the very first episode.
And Elizabeth, would you like to...
I'm going to say 185.
185, a real guess.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Well, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us on this exciting entry into the fireside chats we're doing for Wandering Galaxies Kickstarter campaign. Thank you for doing this. I apologize to anyone watching this. I don't have my beautiful green wall behind me. I somehow forgot I was doing this this morning and then got a notification on my calendar and set it up frantically. So I'm in my dirty little office.
And we even confirmed yesterday.
I know. Yeah, it just was one of those things where in the morning you're like drinking your coffee, eating toast, and you're just like, I've got my whole day ahead of me, not much to do. And then it's like, oh, wait, I gave myself something to do. So, yeah, fun times.
Well, thanks for having me. Bistro, yeah. I think this is the first time I've gotten to meet you, isn't it?
It is, yes. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
Jerry,
for reading for us,
thanks for having me back.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald, thanks for nothing.
Yeah, as usual. Thanks
you
for
noticed
nothing.
me introduced you. He said, my good friends, just sort of attaching himself there.
That's right. That's right.
No, I mean, the truth is that I would probably follow Donald off a cliff like a little lemming. So
Really?
Yeah. Elizabeth is like one of my faves. And I feel like I've been working with Elizabeth since like one of your earliest big voice acting gigs, at least, right? Was Battleborn?
Yeah, I mean, Battleborn was in my first like half a dozen VO roles of my career. So
yeah. Turns out you're good and you're still working. So good for you.
Thanks.
I guess. That's fine.
I'll always keep my blaze.
Thank you.
Also, shout out to Nazi Tarsha as Cookie, and Bryn April as Cena, and the lovely. Oh no, I'm blanking on his name. He's the world's biggest man. He's 7.5 feet tall. Oh no.
Is he playing the guy?
Yeah.
Talks like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Octoph.
Octoph,
Why
yes.
am I forgetting my man's name? Oh, he's like Ray Hurd. Ray Hurd as Octoph. If you get the chance, check that out. And if you ever get the chance to meet Ray Hurd in real life, it's very fun. He is a football player turned voice actor. And when I shake his hand, it is the same as when a baby holds your finger. It is literally that much of a size differential. I don't know. Elizabeth knows the lead engineer at the old studio I used to work with is like 6 foot something. Raleigh was like, he's a very tall guy. And we took pictures with him with Ray just because it looked like Ray had brought like his like son to school. Like,
I want to meet Ray.
He's so tall. He's also a great actor. I'm sure he hates that people just go, you won't believe how big this guy is. But anyways, yeah, all the actors in it sound great. Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, is there anything that you want to plug? Anything people should check out?
Wandering Galaxy.
Perfect.
Duh.
What a perfect
That's a good guess.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to Nikki for letting me fill in for her while she answers people's questions and plans, convention stuff. Once again, we're going to be at Gen Con. Come to our booth. See Wandering Galaxy.
2221, right?
2221 is the booth. That's not a secret code to activate Sleeper Cell. Bye.